All right. Well, one last therapy model, and this is, like I said, this particular module was really packed with a lot of material about various modes of doing therapy. The last one we're going to take a look at is group and family therapy. Again, these two modes of doing therapy with people are probably, in my opinion, some of the most powerful things we can do, partly because in what context do a lot of these habits develop? It's usually in the family context. Also, we talk a lot about here at CCU about community. Well, groups approximate community, and so the social context provided by group therapy allows people to discover that others have problems just like their own, and actually a crucible in which to try new ways of behaving. And so that's really why group therapy is so powerful. So we dispel the isolation um, the isolation theory, if you will, that I'm the only one that has this difficulty. And secondly, we provide a crucible for practice new behaviors. Practicing new behaviors. So essentially, I get to practice this stuff with people who are invested in my well-being and in my growth, and how much better to do that. Now, if you're not familiar, crucible is a word that actually comes from chemistry. We put ingredients into a crucible. It's usually a small porcelain type bowl, grind them all up, and then heat them up, and something arises out of that combination of things. And so a crucible is really meant to be a place of testing, a place of change into different ways of doing it. And groups are an incredible way to look at this. Now, excuse me, one of the things that one class that I teach, which will be coming up a year from now in the fall of 2013, is going to be a group leadership and practice, our process class. And that's one of those places, if you're interested, is one of those places where you can learn a lot about not only yourself, but also about community, about the beliefs and things that people have, finding out that you're not alone in the things that you're wrestling with, and actually get to experience a group in a pretty profound way. Now, the second one is family therapy. As I said a minute ago, where are many of the things that people have trouble with developed? And usually it's in the context of family. So family therapy assumes that we live and grow in relation to others, specifically our family, and it views an individual's unwanted behaviors as influenced by or directed at family members. And so we see the collection of people that you might refer to as family as more than just a collection of people, but a system of people. In other words, what holds them together is actually the rules of relating that determine oftentimes if a family is healthy or not healthy. And in family therapy, we look at rules like that and try to make some changes in regards to not just behavior, let me just put not behavior, but the change that occurs is more in terms of rules of relating or systems of relating, or another way to put it is patterns. I tell people and families all the time, we're not necessarily going to try to change somebody's behavior, but we are going to try to change the patterns in which you relate to one another, and those are part of the backdrop of what we do in family therapy. It's extremely powerful. It produces the kind of change that can be very long-lasting because we're not just telling people to change their behavior, we're telling people to change how they relate to one another. How which is the operative word here, they relate. Relate to one another. And like I said, I mean, it's hard to convey really how powerful this technique is. There's a lot I can tell you more about it, but I don't want to overwhelm you. There is a circular causality. I know that probably makes no sense at all, but our tendency is to look at relational problems in a linear way. So, and the way that what I mean by that is person A says something and person B reacts, and then we have some outcome relationally. The reality is that we have A impacting B that also impacts another person that then comes back and impacts A again. We call this triangulation. And essentially, one of the keys to dysfunction is around that. How many times have you seen it happen, whether it's in your stairwell or whether it's in relationships and families or whatever, but how many times have you seen the person A goes to person B about person C, and instead of going straight to C, and B then intermediates and talks to C, and then C talks to B, and etc. So this part of the formula, or this part of the triangle, is not perpetual or not brought about. And so when reconciliation occurs, essentially what we have to figure out a way to do is get A and C to talk, and that's often exactly what family therapy is like, and that just gives you a little bit of a picture of how these things all work together.
The patients come from all over Belgium. Before entering foster care, a team from Giel Central Psychiatric Hospital carefully screens them. Psychiatrists, psychologists, and social workers determine who will be eligible for the program. Dangerous patients, pedophiles, are automatically excluded. Once a patient is placed, a psychiatric nurse like Mark Hendricks and a psychologist like Wilfred Bogart monitor the relationship.
Do you see improvement in their conditions as they spend more time in this family situation?
I think they are feeling better. That's very important. After a time, they feel better. Because when they enter in a family, the family tries to give them responsibility. Even very light things, to wash dishes, to clean up the house, to work a bit in the garden. Such little thing. And by getting this responsibility, they are feeling better. They feel someone. And in an institution, they never get such a responsibility.
For 45 years, Jeff and Clara have lived together as brother and sister. She was a mentally ill child when Jeff's mother took her in. When his mother died, he took over the responsibility. Today, it's sometimes difficult to determine just who is looking after whom. And so it is with Caroline, Paulina, and Liliane, who call themselves the Three Musketeers. Paulina spent decades in various institutions and has been cared for by Caroline for the last 8 years. So has Liliane, who's been with the family for more than 30 years. They share household chores, go out together, and seem as inseparable as the Musketeers themselves.
They are not dangerous. They tell some tell every time the same thing, and then we laugh with it. And we know them, so they are very friendly. We like them here. It's a custom here in Giel, so we can live very good with the people. It's normal for us.
Patients still have to take their psychiatric medicines. But still, by these patients, a number of them are getting lower and lower medication after a while.
You reduce the medication?
Usually after, let's say, 6 months, if we see some stability in the situation of the patient, then the level of neuroleptic medication that's given to a patient is reduced.
Marceline is retarded and has serious behavioral problems. She's been living with the family of Chris and Magda Roeldams for 8 years, along with 2 other patients, Irma and Margareta, and the Roeldams' 4 children. The Roeldams receive about $13 a day per patient. That stipend is an important incentive, but according to mental health professionals, money alone cannot account for the warmth within these extended families. Bert has been with the Lomelin family for most of his life. He was first taken in by Joseph Lomelin's mother. When she died in 1970, Bert moved in with Joseph. It's simply the done thing in this town. Mark is 32 and has been diagnosed as schizophrenic. For 4 years, he's been living with Staff, his foster father, and Hugo, another patient. He keeps in touch with his biological parents, but feels more secure with his foster family.
Why are you here in this foster care?
I don't really know, but I don't mind being here, so I don't ask myself why I am here. I think the people are good here and I like it here.
Do you feel at ease?
Yes, that's very well. In the beginning it was a little bit problem, but now it's going very well, I think.
How did you learn to speak English so well?
First of all in school, and then in university I had some English, and then with watching very much television I also learned much more English.
Jan van Rensenbergen, the director of the Central Hospital, oversees the family care program.
We have our own hospital connected to the family care system. So whenever a patient is in a crisis, or he had a problem, or he was not behaving properly or in that family, he's taken in again for 1 week, for 2 weeks, for as long as it takes until he's stabilized again, and then he can go back. So being taken away from that family, be put in our central hospital, even that small step within Gael is felt for a patient as a very severe punishment.
In an institution, I think all they do there is giving you pills, and for the rest they don't look at you. But here you really get people who care for you.
Of the 650 family care patients, about 250 go out to jobs in workshops run by the hospital. They do bicycle repair, simple woodworking jobs, electronic assembly, and packaging for local businesses. Dr. Matthew Dumont, a psychiatrist at the Westboro State Hospital near Boston, was one of the first American doctors to study Giel's approach to the mentally ill.
It's not just the treatment of the patients and the fact that they're integrated in the town. It is the impact on the rest of the community, not involved with family care of patients, of a social system where everybody else, everywhere else in the world, a population that is socially marginalized, treated with disdain, abhorred, feared, is accepted, tolerated, welcomed. You would not see a person lying in the street, homeless, in Giel. Whether or not they were a patient, there would be a sense of responsibility for that person. There would be a community concern for anything that looked bizarre or disorganized or threatening of a child.
And 3 + 3?
A population that treats the mentally ill with such acceptance, with such tolerance, is a tolerant community. It's a community defined by its inclusiveness rather than its exclusiveness. And I think that's quite beautiful.
Nee, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6.
Ja.